Good evening and welcome. My name is Fabio Gigi. I'm the chair of the Japan Research Center here at SOAS, and it is a great honor to be hosting this event tonight. Our speaker is Professor Ryo Akama, director of the Art Research Center and a professor at the College of Letters at Ritsumeikan University in Kyoto. He specializes in the study of kabuki and ukiyo-e archives and has published widely on the intersection of pictures of the floating world and early modern theater. Now, before any of us have even started to think about the impact on the digital world, on the arts and culture, Professor Akama has already laid the groundwork in his scholarly work, and he was indeed a driving force behind establishing the new discipline now known as digital humanities. After opening a database of 50,000 ukiyo-e prints at the Theatre Museum of Waseda University to the public, he started the ukiyo-e digitization project at the V&A in 2003, followed by a collaboration with the British Museum and the large-scale digitization project of Japanese cultural resources held by museums and libraries in Europe and America. He was the lead of the Ministry of Education's Global Center of Excellence focusing on Japanese culture in the digital humanities and a core founding member of the Art Research Center at Ritsumeikan University. And you'll see a leaflet to that effect, very beautifully printed, that is distributed now. If you don't have it, please raise your hand and somebody will come around. There's a few people at the back. The Ukiyo-e database and all Japanese book database operated by Professor Akama at the Art Research Center are the largest in the world. He has already given a workshop on the digitalization of archives yesterday, but today he will address us in his other hat, that of an accomplished art historian. We will follow a traditional academic format with the lecture first and then ample opportunity to comment and ask questions afterwards. You can start to feed especially burning questions into the Q&A function if you are joining us online as the talk goes on, but you can also raise your hand and we will unmute you. His talk tonight bears the title, The End of Active Prints, How Did the Meiji Era Active Prints Disappear? Please join me in welcoming Professor Akama to the JRC.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for your introduction. My name is Ryo Akama of the Art Research Center at Ritsumeikan University. I have known SOAS for more than 20 years, and I have been here many times before the COVID-19. So I have very fond memories of SOAS. This time, I'm conducting a workshop on digitization of materials in digital humanities type collaboration with the SOAS library, starting on a Monday. I am very honored to have this opportunity to present here at the Center for Japanese Studies. Today, my presentation focuses on yakusha-e in ukiyo-e. There are not many works that describe the history of yakusha-e from beginning to end. Why it is not a complete history? This is because of the following reasons. Because there are so many of them left that it is difficult to see in their entirety. It was not possible to explain in detail how they disappeared, especially after the start of the Meiji period. As for the first point, as it is well known to ukiyo-e researchers, there is a huge online database of ukiyo-e that I am operating at the Ritsumeikan Art Research Center, which allow us to look at the old works. Recently, I have been able to add some new funding works to that database, which is why I decided to talk about here. In particular, during the Meiji period, photography was introduced and eventually surpassed yakusha-e, leading to its demise. But I do not see this as a mere switch of media, but rather as a difference in the expressiveness of performances and personality of the two media. This paper is an attempt to confirm the transition of yakusha-e from the Edo period to the Meiji and Taisho period, showing specific works. The works presented in this paper will also provide an opportunity to consider how actors' performances and personalities were depicted in their prints. Now, it is not until the later half of the Genroku era that individual actors began to be depicted in ukiyo-e prints. With Tori Kiyonobu and Kiyomasu and Okumura Masanobu working in Edo and Omori Yoshikiyo in Kyoto. However, yakusha-e of the Tori school were depicted according to role, such as Tachiyaku, a male leading actor, a role of Katakiyaku, a role of the villain, Doukegata, a clown, a female kabuki role, onnagata, and young male role, wakashikata. Yakusha-e of the Tori school, with the exception of Tori Kiyonaga, are characterized by the fact that they do not depict individual characters. However, some of the most popular and unique actors focus on their faces in order to free them from the constraints of their role. And from the 1940s onward, some artists began to use multiple color plates known as benizurie to express the individuality of the actors. However, when the Nishiki technique of multicolor printing was developed, it became necessary to depict the individuality of the actors or their likenesses in a way that matched the expressive power of the screen. This was the era of a Katsukawa school, which quickly overtook the Tori school. The monumental work of this school was the Ehon Butai Ogi, published in 1990. Nakamura Utaemon the first here, for example, had already surpassed mere portraits in his overwhelming expressive power, which was astonishing. Around 1800, many works known as Okubi-e, large neck print with bust-up composition were produced, where the close-up expression of the actors, especially when depicting angry performance in rough and tumble situation, combined with kumadori remain powerful. From around 1790, the Kansei period works incorporating the flavor of physiognomy can be is this okay? Physiognomy can be seen in Yakusha-e and Bijinga. This is a book. This book is 芝居32層天眼鏡 published in 1802. It is an illustrated book of actor produced in the style of portrait and physiognomy. The actor's commentary is given below the portrait, but the commentary does not explain the facial expression of the actors, since the phrase, "What is the physiognomy?" in the commentary can be simply paraphrased as the person is. Kuniyoshi left many works of anthropomorphic animal portrait of actors during the period after temple reforms, when Yakusha-e were banned. The Doke 36 Keso series, which is intended as a series of portraits of actors, depicted the portraits of actors themselves. For example, Ichimura Uzaemon the 12th face is depicted as one of haste due to urgent business, which is the most suitable expression for portraying the likeness of his actor, who was also called Hatopopo, a pigeon, here. Looks Hatopopo. And in the field of actor portrait research, there was a time until 20 years ago when the identification of unique portrait was said to be craftsmanship. Nowadays, it is easy to identify them with database. In the next stage of Yakusha-e research, we are now at the stage of focusing on how to depict the entire body rather than the face. In this way, it will become clear that unique gesture and also depicted. Since vocal color, since kawairo and form copying was form copying, just 形態模写 kawairo and 形態模写 how to say was popular as a hobby among amateur. Yakusha Miburi Himokagami, Yakusha Miburi Himokagami was published in 1992, and Zashikigei Chaban no Ateburi here is also an actor's portrait layer of an amateur pretending to be Matsumoto Koshiro the fifth in the first at a time when actor pictures were banned, actor print were banned. The print is a good example of the expression of Koshiro the fifth face, as well as the atmosphere of his standing up all suited to the role. Thus, it is important to confirm that that by the end of Edo period, although still in its infancy, Yakusha-e had come to depict the individuality of actors in terms of both likeness and facial expression and gestures. Many of the large large leg prints of beauties in the physiognomy style are preserved in the beauty prints of Utamaro and Kunisada the first. Here is a series called Hayaku. 当世百面相 printed by depicted by Utagawa Yoshihiko. It depicted the excited expression on the face on the Okami-san, who leaves her house early in the morning to go to theater to see a play. Utagawa Kunichika, who was active in Yakusha-e during the Meiji period, also has a series of Physiognomy, a series of beautiful women print. This entitled Tose Sanju Niso was published in September 1869 and depicts a portrait of woman holding a photograph of herself with a subtitle Utsushita So. Photograph, so Utsushita So means probably photographed. This is another work from Kunichika's Nishiki Ori Musashi no Beppin series, published in 1883. It depicts a languid expression of person who was just woken up, showing Kunichika's great ability to depict people. This is Fuzoku 32 so, 32 phrase of manners and customs from 1889, which is highly praised as a masterpiece by Yoshitoshi. It can be said that the expressive ability of Ukiyo-e artists of the Meiji period, including Kunichika, to depict a facial expression of people was greater than that of photographs. Now, we finally come to Yakusha-e of Meiji period. Many of them were depicted by artists such as Yoshihiko, Yoshitoshi, Kunichika, Chikashige, Kunimasa the third, Hokusai, and others. Especially when it comes to Yakusha-e of the Meiji period, we may say that Kunichika is the best. First of all, in relation to today's theme, today's theme is collaboration with photographs and Yakusha-e. Let us first confirm the relationship between photographs and Yakusha-e. According to Ayaka Murashima's research, Kabuki actors were not fully documented in photographs until 1869. In other words, it is safe to say that Yakusha-e in the Meiji period began around the same time as the introduction of photographic technology. How this photographic medium, which records a likeness, a gesture, and facial expression as they are, affected Yakusha-e is a question I will not touch on here, but it goes without saying that research from the photographic side is also necessary. It goes without saying that research from the photographic side is also necessary. Yoshihiko and Kunichika were sensitive to this type of actor photography. Yoshihiko started as a series of Haiyu Shashin Kagami, actors photograph mirrors, for Kabuki performances in May of 1870. The title of this work, 写真どころ, which was also produced by Kunichika at the same time, reads Today's Sale, 今日売り出し, which seemed to be an advertisement that actor photograph, like actor print, would be sold at the photo studios in the conjunction with the performances. However, only one piece with this title has been found so far, and it is unclear how many were produced, and it appears that this project was not successful. As Dr. Murashima also pointed out, lithograph print in the style of photograph was produced in 1874 using hand colors, this one. However, this also was project of the time and did not take root. On the other hand, Kunichika published Yakusha Gakuya Kagami in 1869 and a series of large head prints of actors without makeup. And in 1881, Imayo Haiyu 写真鏡, a series of large head actor print using photographs as their title. Both of these works are not in the photographic style, but rather follow the traditional style of yakusha Ukiyo-e. And since many of these works have survived, they were successful as a series. And I believe that the people of the time continued to accept this traditional style of depiction. Although photographs of kabuki actors continued to be sold after that, yakusha-e as print were ideally depicted with large screen and extreme colors and had a different appeal from photographs and remained the main medium for the depicting kabuki. Here, I would like to mention a change in the composition of yakusha screen between the Edo and Meiji period. This is even if the yakusha is a triptych. The composition is to be depicted from the waist down, 腰より下. This composition started around 1860. On the other hand, the composition of full body portraits like this one, basically end in 1868, although there are some exceptions. The basic style of conventional yakusha was the full body portrayal, and even the works called Okubi-e were basically half body portrait above the waist up or from the chest up. Of course, there are a few exceptions, but most of the yakusha of Meiji period were composed from the waist down. This composition is completely different from that of photographs. This composition is the same as the composition of the plot book, which shows the story or the stage, but rather a list of performers like a ranking list, banzuke. This one. From the end of Edo period, the method of depicting one or two actors on the wide screen was added, but this method was not common in the Edo period. This wide screen of three consecutive panel with plenty of actors is one of the patterns. This is the portrait of Nakamura Utaemon the fifth by Utagawa Hokusai. The use of red or dark blue for the background is another characteristic of Meiji era yakusha, but from the 1990s, more and more works were created using the base color of the paper itself, without coloring the background like this. Compared with the bromide shown here, which is a small hand bill from the same period, the print yakusha is still more attractive as a product like this. From the late 1890s to the early 19th, yakusha were dominated by Kunichika and Hokusai. In 1893, Toshihide produced a series of works focused on a single actor, Mimasu-goshi, which depicts 36 print of Danjiro the Ninth, and had not been produced before, but Kunichika countered this project the same year by producing Baiko Hyakushu, depicting 100 print of Onoe Kikugoro the fifth. Kunichika further completed Ichikawa Danjiro Enge Hyakushu in 1898. Kunichika, who had been responsible for the yakusha in the Meiji era, passed away in July 1900. Looking at actual example of his work like this, there was only one print by Kunichika himself in March of 1899. This work is as powerful as ever. This is only one piece in May of 1899. This is a full-range portrait, which is rare, and it is depicted as if it were an actual scene on a stage. Even after his death, however, several works with the signatures of Kunichika can be found. Probably the name of Kunichika is overwhelmingly famous, and these works were reprinted by Hokusai or his pupil, Ko Kunimasa, using the woodblock of his old works. In this response to this situation, Yoshihiko, who had left the world of yakusha by shifting his activities to theatrical magazines, divides and left several works between 1899 and 1901, at the year of Kunichika's death. Now, since the number of works decreased overwhelmingly, it is a certain fact that the medium of yakusha, which had been produced in direct connection with kabuki entertainment, declining sharply after Kunichika's death. The death of three famous actors in 1903 and 1905 were fatal to yakusha, resulting in the large number of death print. This is an yakusha depicting a performance at the Kabukiza theater in April 1904, with the Russian-Japanese war as its subject. Just that year, postcard began to circulate from 1904, putting an end to the demise of yakusha. This work symbolized the fact that yakusha were no longer produced during this period. It is the production of the farmer Kunichika's work, which was stamped to commemorate the performance and was probably sold at the Kabukiza Theater in May 1906. Then, also in 1907, at the time of Kanjincho, after the 3 years in interval, Hokusai issued a yakusha in the conventional format under the title of Issei Ichidai, once in a lifetime. Thus, yakusha as entertainment publication linked to Kabuki performance, which had continued since the Edo period come to an end. Among the Ukiyo-e that depicted Kabuki, there is a type of toy picture called Kumiyage-e. The purpose of these works is not to depict the actors themselves. However, after the death of the 3 famous actors, the number of yakusha declined sharply, and curiously enough, from 1903 to 1907, the production of Kumiyage decreased as well. The reason for this is not clear, since it has been revived since 1908. I will only go on to point out this. It is in step with the trend of yakusha. Next, let us look at the movement of magazine. The first issue of Kabuki Shimpo was published in 1879, and it cover features a picture of an actor by Yoshiko and others. Although it is printed in black ink, there is also a Nishike printed cover at the end of the magazine. In 1901, a magazine Kabuki, the first issue, was published. This magazine was aimed at the more professional audience. The theater magazine Engei Gaho with photogravure page was published from 1907, followed by Engei Club, Shin Engeki, and other magazines. However, the picture of the actors at the stage were not completed, replaced by photographs, but were depicted as cover illustration and front pieces, like this. However, the artists who worked on these works came from different backgrounds from the traditional Utagawa school, especially as Kunisada and Kunichika. And it can be said that the era of Shinhanga for yakusha had arrived. In response to these new trends, Shin Nigao was published in 1915. Shin Nigao has 5 issues with works by Matsuda Seifu, Natori Shunsen, and others. In this era of new prints of yakusha, Shinhanga, Hokusai started a series of medium-sized yakusha in 1915. Currently, 70 pieces have been identified. This series shows a shift away from the previous Utagawa style and into the style of Matsuda Seifu and other presented in the Shin Nigao series. However, this Utagawa Hosai also died at the age of 73 on October 26, 1912. With this, we can say that Yakusha-e, which has continued from Edo period to the Meiji and Taisho period, including the Torii, Katsukawa, and Utagawa school, and completely come to an end. Photographs in Photogravia magazine include a serial photographs of Kabuki performance type, 演技の方. For example, this Utaemon the fifth published as serial photographs called Yodogimi's expression in Shin Engei in 1924. Natori Shunsen's series of large head print is clearly based on the one of series photographs, serial photographs published in the magazine like this, and this one. The same Shunsen work depicts Ichikawa Uzaemon the 15th playing the role of Naozamurai at the Kabukiza Theater in 1925, but unlike the traditional Yakusha-e, I think it is fair to say that the expression of his face is depicted as in the photograph. メイドのお土産、芝居の面影、is this one? Is a series of memorial paintings by Ota Gakko, which are owned by Tsubouchi Theater Museum, Waseda University. This one from this series, probably based on this bromide. This is another work by Ota Gakko depicting Shihei no Nanawarai and all based on this bromide. It can be said that it was painted to depict the very expression of laughter. This is already not Shinhanga style, but rather a manga style. Yamamura Koka is one of the artists who adapted to a manga style in the Shinhanga era. Ota Gakko seems to have been influenced by Yamamura Koka. The difference between the Shinhanga and the traditional Ukiyo-e of Utagawa school is that the former is not directly connected to the entire entertainment industry. The artist first conceives the concept from photograph, then depict the yakusha-e, and then add his own individuality to it. It should be added that subsequent actor painter from the Showa to the Heisei era, including Hisashi Yamamoto, Tsuruya Koke, and Paul Bini. I hope this has explained the transition from the Edo period to the Meiji period, the disappearance of yakusha-e as entertainment publication in the Meiji period, and the yakusha in the yakusha in Shinhanga era. I should also mention that trend of yakusha in Osaka, but I will omit in this time. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much for a very interesting and very richly illustrated talk. I want to start with a very simple question that you mentioned at the very beginning. And that is, you said the yakusha were banned at some point. Could you tell us a little bit more about why that was the case? Why were they banned?
Oh, the time is a tempo error,
Right.
tempo reform. So they artists could not depict the yakusha, and sometimes they change the way to depict, as it looks like yakusha, but
it didn't.
It isn't.
Okay. Thank you. And tempo, what would that's the 18 yes, 18. Thank you. Excellent. Well, I'll open it up to the floor. Questions and comments. If you're online, if you're joining online, please put your questions into the Q&A function. Yes, shall we start here and then, thank you.
Didn't actually mention when yakusha later period stopped being produced. It probably continued until later in small numbers. What point is when yakusha and Meiji period stopped being the major product for Kabuki?
Eh, なんだろうな。役者絵 that always connect to that Kabuki industry. And in the end of Meiji period, especially the Meiji 40, and everything stopped and connect to the Kabuki industrial performance. And after that, the artist want to depict the yakusha, sometimes yakusha, on the magazine or other place. These are not connected to the performance, theater performance. And also, for example, the Natori Shunsen, he used the magazine photograph or ehagaki, something like that. So it's not originally original print, original なんていうんですかね。直接書いたわけではない。
It's not directly depicting it, but it's taking it from a template that often was a colored postcard.
なんで、it's not, in today, my opinion is not clear. First end is a Meiji 40. Then second end is that because the Hokusai continue that small size print connect to the not direct connect, but after the performance, only Hokusai can publish the chuban print. So the end, this of Hokusai is the second end. And after that, some artists sometimes want to make a yakusha. For example, the Paul Bini is depicted like that. So
so they don't die completely; they still exist, but
still exist, but it's not a real yakusha.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
大丈夫ですか?
Thank you. Yes, please.
I'm very interested in the thing that you said about how much nicer the yakusha was compared to the photographs. that the, photograph just seemed very crude and, didn't really, just not aesthetically beautiful. But I'm just thinking that at the time, they probably thought that the photograph was a lot better than the Yaksha-e. I mean, it's very striking, I think. So I'm doing a book on Josiah Honda, the architect, who worked in Meiji Japan, Meiji Taisho Japan. And it's striking how when he produced designs for a new imperial palace, and to us, his designs look horribly clunky, Western style, with vague, not really Japanese, but Asian sort of characteristics, compared with the traditional Japanese architecture. We think, well, why would anyone choose this sort of Western copy? And in fact, in that case, they didn't. But the same was true with clothing, that people were stopping wearing kimono, and particularly men were wearing Western style suits. And we might say, well, the kimono is so much more beautiful. And indeed, when Westerners visited Japan, for example, people like Pierre French right in the 1880s, you would say, well, why on earth are the Japanese getting rid of their lovely aesthetic, building these horrible Western style buildings? They've got this beautiful artistic tradition and they're just throwing it away. So I think what we're doing is we're still thinking in that way. And I wonder if we should perhaps be trying to put ourselves in the shoes of the people who actually lived at the time and what they thought.
May I just respond to that? I mean, this is all because of the type of civilization and enlightenment and the political situation Japan was in at the time. They didn't want to be colonized. They saw what was happening in Africa and other countries and parts of the world, what the Western nations did there. So that is the reason why the Meiji period is such a hybrid period, where you see the influence and impact of Western art and architecture and fashion. So that is the main reason. And they wanted to be seen as modernized, westernized. So that is the reason why not all of the people, I mean, there were also artists like
建築家で西洋の建築を真似した人たちが多くいたんですけれども、今現代の人の目から見ると、やっぱり真似したような、あまり創造性がないような感じがしますけど、当時はやっぱり当時の人たちはそれをちょっと違うように見えたんじゃないか。今森川さんがそれに対して、植民地化されないように、やっぱり西洋を真似したっていう、なんていうんですか、圧力は感じられましたので、そんなに簡単に、ただ、美としてはこれ、西洋のものが優れるっていうわけでは全然なかったっていうふうに、思いました。少しそういう議論すると、やっぱりちょっとオリエンタル的な思想になってしまいます。やっぱり近代よりはその伝統的なことを優先されるという、やっぱり西洋的な観点からそういうのもあるんですが、それはちょっとやっぱり問題視されないといけないという、オリエンタリズムというものも、そういう見方の中でも見られるんだ。
Indeed, many tourists go to Kyoto and they regret all the Western style buildings in Kyoto.
今でも観光客が西洋の観光客が京都に行って、やっぱり西洋的な風景を見て、やっぱり残念だって思ってる人もいる。 まあ、はい、本題に戻りましょう。
私から。
という話。
いや、
はい、何か。じゃあ、
でも、
I haven't studied the photograph of yaksha. When they started doing it, were they allowed to photograph the stage in action? In these days, you take pictures of, they'll do it in Butai Geiko. They'll take pictures during certain times. Do the theaters allow photographers to take pictures of live performance?
生の演奏中で写真を撮ることは可能でしたか、当時。やっぱりその後。
できません。舞
舞
台の、舞台が終わると、写真館に行って撮ったり、あるいはそのセットを作って、劇場じゃなくてセットを作って撮ったり。で、劇場で撮った写真も何枚か残ってますけども、みんな止まって。
So they weren't able to take it during the performance, but afterwards, sometimes on stage, but often in an artificially created set. And you can sort of see on the pictures that they sort of, they had to keep still for quite a long time in order to take a proper picture. So it wasn't directly from the stage.
ですけど、やっぱり衣装と化粧はそのままつけたまま、楽屋から出て写真館に行って撮ったりするので、それはリアルなものですね。で、さっきの話じゃないですけど、リアルなんです。白黒だけどリアルなんです。その良さもある。で、だけど美術的には浮世絵の方、色で錦絵刷りの方が圧倒的に美しい。で、写真はリアル、浮世絵は綺麗。リアルの方が進むと負けちゃいますので、新版画のように芸術性を高めるようになって本物に見えなくなる。で、なので新版画、今の、雑誌というか新似顔に載ってる絵を好まない人の方が今は多いと思うんですね。
So originally the actors, they would still wear the original makeup and the original costume and would walk from the changing rooms to the studio to take the pictures. And so the question that was raised earlier, whether, we have this idea that the ukiyo-e is beautiful because it is print, because it's art, but the photograph has a certain reality to it that is different, that we appreciate in a different kind of way. And so this is sort of the distinction that we maybe want to make. So what happened as a result is that the prints became less real in order to make them more artistic, because the imitation of reality was already there in the photograph. Yes.
Could you say a little bit more about physiognomy? I know it's a term that immediately suggests, things going on in Europe, of course, at the same time, but I want to avoid asking a question that's premised on what's going on in Europe. So those expressions that you showed, the collection of expressions, I mean, could you say a little bit more about how are those expressions coming from a kind of science of facial expressions that physiognomy suggests, and or are they coming mainly from acting culture? Because I'm wondering how did people react to them? Did they see a certain grimace? Because there's a suggestion of the grotesque about, or what in Europe might have seen as a grotesque, yes, which conveyed a certain mood or a certain emotion. Or were these snapshots of particular performances on roles that suggest the celebrity culture? So this is a certain actor in a certain role and a certain moment in that role. I know it's quite a complex thing I'm asking, but was it related to actor training? If you want to convey this emotion, you have to do this expression. Was that connected to any kind of what we might in the West, I guess, call the science of physiognomy, but certain expressions reveal certain things about you. Does that make sense?
I'll try my best.
先にいただいたその表情の写真集 ありましたよね。で、そちらの方、人相との違いをもうちょっと説明していただきたいという、質問です。感想と人相で、ヨーロッパで言うと、疑似科学、科学、いわば疑似科学としては認められたんですけれども、そこではなんていうんですか、基本的な人の、エッセンスみたいなものがそこで見えるようになるという、そういう表情の科学ということとして捉えることもできるんですけど、逆にそっちの表情の役者演習は、例えばですね、その演劇の練習、歌舞伎の練習として使われたんですか？その科学的な背景と、芸術的な背景はやっぱり違ったんです。
なかなか難しいんですけど、この頃に、この人相とか感想が流行っていて、で、それに見立てた本なんですね。見立てたっていうか、それを、真似した、他にもそういう本がたくさん出ている、その形式を真似して作った本なんですけども、ちょうどこの時に、勝川派になって、似顔が本当に描ける、写真のように感じられる似顔が出てくるので、ちょうどその感想と、その流行とが合致してこういう本が出来上がるんだけれども、でもその科学の方ではなくて、ただただ性格のタイプ、要するに役者の例えば悪役であるとか、その荒事の役であるとかというそのタイプしか書いてない、この説明には。で、決してその役者の感想のことを書いてるわけじゃなくて、そんな科学はこの時はなかったので、今まで通りの説明しか書いてない。
So it wasn't a science like physiognomy that tried to sort of determine the sort of the inner nature of human beings, but it came very much, as you said, it came from a tradition of acting. So the expressions depicted were not the actors, but the roles that they were playing. So like the Aragoto, the young impetuous man, so they were linked to that rather than to the idea that there is something essential to the depiction of character in this sense.
Thank you.
でもそうね。
Sorry, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And online, yes.
日本語でもいいですか？
もちろん。
もちろん。
はい、らしいです。私はインドからデリ大学の博士課程の1年生です。今日の、詳しい説明ありがとうございました。質問は、仏教はユキエにどれぐらい与えましたか？影響を与えましたか？
So thank you very much. A PhD student from the University of Delhi. And the question is whether Buddhism had a strong influence on the depiction of these actors. Thank you.
ルチアがよくわかってる。
Lucia knows.
単純にそう、なんでしょう、なんか、仏の単純にそうですね。
So there is a genre of depiction of the 32 aspects of the
characters of the features of the Buddha, but I don't know actually. I also wondered why are they called the 32 characters. It must be connected to the 32 characters of the Buddha, but it must have, by that time it became some kind of a way of indicating physiognomy, and that's it. I suppose, I don't know. There is a science in Japan which is of Buddhist and Chinese origin, but this is not what they are doing here. But it's interesting that the term Sanjurito is a Buddhist term.
なので、あれですね、どう言えばいいかわかんないんですけども、仏教は、文化として定着はしているけれども、信仰してたかどうかは確かではない。でも普通に仏教の文化が普通に存在しているから、どんどん言葉も使うし、習慣もあるしっていう。
So it may very well be. So Buddhism was just part of the cultural background. It wasn't necessary that people believed in it in the sense that we understand belief to be a particular state of mind. And so this general culture of Buddhism with its numerology and the ideas of physiognomy, this is really difficult, may have influenced ideas of actor prints as well. 順番からいきます。はい。あ、佐藤さん。あ、いいですか。はい、ありがとうございます。はい、じゃあ、田中さん。はい。
最初のファビオ先生の質問と似ているんですけれど、この天保の改革では、歌舞伎の上演自体は、禁止にはなっていないですね。
なってない。
でも、その割にはなぜこの役者への売買だけが禁止になったんですか。何か売買が倫理としてなんかあまり良くないとか、あるいはその写真があるのに絵を売るっていうことが、こう、明治維新の文明開化的に良くなかったっていう、どうしてこの役者絵だけが、禁止になり、観劇自体は別に禁止になっていない。どういう、あるいはその役者絵を得ることによって何かおかしなことってですかね、何か変な風に利用されたっていうんですか、そういったことが、事例があったんでしょうか。
So the question is, why were they banned when other genres of pictures were not banned at the same time? Why was there this focus on actors' prints? Was there any kind of concern about their misuse or what people could have done with them?
But also the play of the Akama itself wasn't banned.
Oh, and the plays that they were based on, yes, were not banned, yes.
はい。歌舞伎の上演も禁止はされてないですけども、劇場の位置が浅草の奥の方に移されてますね。で、不便な場所に行ってます。で、まあ、要するに、役者絵だけじゃなくて美人画もダメですね。で、贅沢がダメだった。で、見せしめもあります。一番、庶民が一番こう好んでいるものを止めることによって緊縮体制で、ちゃんと真面目にいきましょうねって言おうとしたわけですね。だけどその人々はそんなことでは生活とか考え方は変わらないので、天保の改革は失敗するし、役者絵も、何年後ですか、5年後にはもう復活する。
Yes. So well, the plays themselves weren't banned, but the theaters were moved to Asakusa, which is inconvenient to reach, and so they were associated with a different set of people. And it wasn't so much; it was bijinga, so beauty, the beauties, depiction of beauties, of beautiful women, were also banned. Anything that had to do with luxury was considered unseemly, and it was considered unseemly specifically to the townspeople. So there were the temple the temple reforms that failed were sumptuary regulations. So telling the townspeople you should save, you shouldn't indulge in luxury, you should, be serious and not too playful.
Very similar to Tory austerity.
今現代のトリ政府のオーステリティと似たような感じです。
It's very similar, actually. Trying to save money for the government.
Yeah. Yes, it's save it from the arts. Yes. Thank you. So thank you. There's a question at the back. Yes, please, and then.
Hi. Thank you very much for your talk. It was a word you mentioned a couple of times, and it might be related to distinguishing itself from photography. But how influential, and I may be revealing myself to be very stupid here, but how influential was Yakusha-e and maybe Ukiyo-e more generally to the development of manga in Japan and the sort of proliferation of that industry later in the century?
役者絵とか浮世絵は後の、漫画の、企業にどんな影響を与えたのかっていう質問。
役者絵画っていうことはあるかな。直接はない かもしれないんですけども、
There's probably no direct influence.
ただ、絵師ですね。絵師は、職人の絵師としては、浮世絵の業界っていうのはたくさんいたわけですよね。で、その、役者絵とか、その浮世絵の方からは、浮世絵を作るっていうことがだんだん減ってくるわけだから、その職人さんたちは別の仕事をし始めるわけですね。で、その勝川派と歌川派の絵師が、じゃあその漫画の方に行ったかというと、それほどいないと思われるね。で、っていうのは、新しい漫画の描き方ができなかったと思うんです。弟子に入って、歌川派の描き方を教わってしまうわけです。型にはめられるわけですね。で、なかなか、だからそこからはみ出していくことができないわけですね。そういう意味でのその限界があったとは思います。
So as the popularity of ukiyo-e declined, there were a lot of we would probably say painters, but masters of picture creation that suddenly were out of a job. And so you could think that, well, maybe yes, there were people who would be then interested in creating new forms, but most of them had gone through a very strict training in a particular kind of school. So to create something new really wasn't part of the training itself. So it's hard to imagine that something completely new would come out of this particular way of training.
浮世絵の中ではもちろん北斎とか京斎ですね。京斎あたりがその漫画の方に流れていくと思いますし、あとちょっと方向性違うかもしれませんけども、大阪とか京都の浮世絵師がいるんですね。で、その人たちは何をしたかっていうと、もっと新しいことをしていきます。で、例えば、野村義国っていう人は、もともと役者絵も描いてますし、浮世絵描いてるんですけども、劇場のバックグラウンドね、を描いたりしてるうちに、映画の興行と結びついていく。で、その前に何したかというと、パノラマ館の興行を仕掛けるんですね。そういうなんだろう、絵を描いている、あるいは浮世絵を描くってことは、光とか色にすごくセンスがないといけないわけです。で、なので、そのパノラマ館であるとか、映画であるとか、それから、なんだっけ、清近が光線絵になりますよね。で、そういったものもすぐに大阪の方では真似をして、光線絵らしきものも作ったりもします。で、なので浮世絵に関して言えば明治の後半になってくると、むしろその人材は大阪、京都の方が変わったことをする人が多かったと思いますね。
So if you think about the connection to manga, it's probably more Hokusai, so a much earlier generation that were sort of later being picked up. And so many of the artists that were living, especially in the Osaka and Kyoto area, they developed in a very different direction. So they would, for example, Nomura Yoshikuni, who also painted yakusha, would later start painting backgrounds for theatrical productions, also modern theatrical productions, and would also start working in film. So a particular kind of sensitivity for light and color that was there could be taken in this other direction as well. So there was and that mostly happened in the Kamigata or former Kamigata areas, so around Kyoto and Osaka, which Kyoto is the birthplace of the Japanese film industry. Hi.
So I was curious about why was Hokusai the last person to be allowed to produce the yakusha? Like, did he have a specific deal with the kabuki theaters? And also, how was his work seen, since he was kind of, I think, one of the last
descendants of like the Kunisada lineage.
うん
国定、国定系譜の最後の、美術家、ホーサイが、なぜそういう役者絵を描く権利を持ってたんですか？
権利は持ってないと思うけど、それしかできなかった。
He could only do that. He didn't have a special right to do it.
国近がやっぱり、なんですかね、絵師の中では国近というのは非常に優れた才能を持っていて、大きな仕事をしていて、それを引き継ぐ人なんですね。っていうか、ホーサイは結局歌川派の代には数えられていないんですけれども、おそらくは、一番何ですか、初代豊国国定で、国近のその次の人だとちゃんと自覚があったと思うんですね。で、なんとか役者絵を続けていきたいという意識が一番強かったのがホーサイだと思う。で、儲かったかどうかは分からないです。売れなかったと思うからね。あんまり残ってないから。でも、最後の、自分が辞めてしまえば、この本当に歌川派が作って勝川歌鳥勝川歌川と続いてきたこの役者絵の大きな産業と言ってもいいぐらいのこの世界がなくなってしまうというその責任感はすごく強かったと思います。
So he probably had a very strong sense of responsibility. He was in the line of Kunichika, extremely talented artist, and he sort of, you can follow the line back. So from the first Toyokuni to Kunisada, what Sensei said at the beginning as well, he probably couldn't really do many other things. And he also realized that if he stopped doing it, it would be the end of this whole industry of actor prints. And he also did other things, but they didn't really sell that well.
じゃあちょっとインターネットの方をちょっと。
So a question from Henry Smith, two questions. One, was the decline of Meiji-style Nishiki-e limited to actor prints? Both landscape and historical prints seem to have declined as well. And the second question, was the disappearance of the triptych, the Sammaitsukiri format, rather suddenly in 1912, including for landscape and historical prints, part of what is often seen as the death of Ukiyo-e in late Meiji?
最初のなんですね。
時代の錦の衰えは、その役者に限らなかったんですね。歴史と、歴史的なものも同じ時に。
でしょうね。同じぐらいですね。確かにね、ランドスケープも、結局、新しいものを描くっていうのが、浮世絵なんですね。流行しているもの、新しいもの。で、その明治に入ってきて、ランドスケープはその開花絵、横浜絵、開花絵っていう、あるいは戦争絵っていう、ちょっと特別なものを描く機会があったんで生き残ってますけども、それ以降、各題材がなくなってきたではもちろん売れなくなりますので、であとはやっぱり大事なのが絵はがきですね。絵はがきが圧倒的に流行していくので、簡単郵便制度がちゃんと整って、なんか風景画は特にそうなりますよね。それで送ってあげれば交換する送るっていうようなその文化っていうのは絵はがきに移っていったりっていうこともあるので、写真というよりも絵はがきがかなり浮世絵っていう世界を衰えさせた理由にはなるでしょうね。 まあ、ほぼ同じだと思う。スミ先生の方がよく知ってるような気がする。
You may know this better than anybody else, but the idea that maybe we can suppose that maybe the topics for ukiyo-e artists disappear. This idea that there is something that is popular at the moment and that you draw something that is new and exciting and popular, therefore that idea disappears. And the other big sort of enemy of the ukiyo-e, you could say, is the postcard. So the whole genre of landscape can easily be covered by the postcard, something that can easily be reproduced and easily sent around. And that really put a dent into the earnings of the artists who still created ukiyo-e.
ですね。ですね。
Second question.
ちょっと意味わかんない。
3枚次がなくなる。で、
ちょっとトリプティックがいつなくなるのかっていうのは、スミス先生の方がよく調べられてるんだと思いますが、やっぱり戦争映画、大量に、できていて、その時はトリプティックなんですね。で、その後、まだまだトリプティックのような、豪華なフォーマットっていうのは、もう、浮世絵業界が衰えていく中では、なくなっていくっていうことだと思うんですけど、ちょっと、私よりよく知ってる先生からの質問なので、ちょっと答え。
Again, it's a question from somebody who is supposed to know this probably better. But one reason that we can speculate about is that for the sort of the triptych became associated with war paintings, with this, surprising large-scale depictions, and from there wasn't any further place that it could go. Maybe that's, but you should know that. Better than anybody else. Any other questions? If not, thank you very much for your presentation. Thank you very much for coming. And we will have a wine reception in the senior common room. If you're a SOAS student, you will know how to get there. Please bring people who may not know where that is or who do not have a security clearance to actually go there. So attach yourself to one person who has that. There is a few bottles of wine and we can continue the conversation. Thank you very much. And also do come back for next week where Professor Hugh Whitaker from Oxford University will speak about Japan's digital and green revolution. Thank you very much.